point in terms of, do we want hyper-personalization? And as you correctly say, you have to give a large amount of data and very detailed data, because you can only personalize if the person is willing to give the data. Obviously, if it's something as straightforward as salary, it's a bit more straightforward. I mean, maybe Calvin, what's your thoughts on that? Because I think what Francis is saying is right. We all want some personalization. Do we actually want hyper-personalization? Does it get too intrusive?
Yeah, I do agree with what Francis mentioned just now, right? The thing is, some customers or some clients essentially would think that they lose some bits of privacy when any organization, not just banks, right, for that matter, get to personalize in terms of offerings or even communication. From a client perspective, is that, hey, does it mean that I'm actually divulging too much of information? Where did you get those information from that perspective, right? I think it's great for us so that we from an organization standpoint, or I mean, generally, what happens is if you provide all the right messages at the right time when customer needs it. We assume customer needs it, but it's very much dependent on the interaction between us and the client to see whether the client actually needs it. So in a nutshell, is that it's two ways, it's not always one way, right? Because client can actually provide us the right information for us to be able to process, manipulate, combine and whatnot, right? So our analytics would do all the magic and all that. But at the point in time when customer receive the information, it's a question of whether do they want it at the time. Because occasionally too much information, I think like what Francis said, it comes with a risk. It can be multiple type of risk. Yeah.
Can you give us an example? You've worked, as you say, whether it's in touch and go, RHB. What is your example of maybe how it works today and how it can then work in the future?
I guess how it works today is that, when from a financial advice perspective, let's just take that, right? There's basically the RM knows more about the client than as a bank knows more about the client, because there is a personal relationship with them, right? We know when, let's say, the child, their children graduating or getting married or not, right? So then we can actually congratulate them or not. So the first level of interaction is always RM, right? But the bank as a whole, we will never have that kind of information to think about it. So then the question is, we would like to have that kind of information upfront so that we can actually send the right advice or messages to the client. But the question then is, do we need to do that? Right? Is that level of information necessary? So that's one. There's more from, retaining and maintaining clients' relationship. And the second part about recommending products or advices to client, it takes a lot more than just certain interactions, certain transaction from the client. It's more of, in the past, what the client has done, what is their profile, and how do we actually provide and recommend certain products at the right time and when they need it, right? So that's a challenge that I guess most organizations will have today is, mixing information, mixing third-party related data so that we are able to provide the most informed or advice to clients. I think that will be where we need to do.
And it's an interesting point you say to recommend the product. I think there's a kind of a logical challenge here that we should be recommending advice and not product, but the industry is structured around product on top of advice. And maybe Calvin, just keeping it with you for one more, just to think about that. So I used to be a financial advisor, and I would, long ago, 30 years ago, because I'm old, and I was always told there's always a right product for the client. But really what they were saying is make sure they buy a product, right? And I do think, that's an industry standard. I'm wondering, does digital give us the opportunity to be, unemotional about it? Because as an advisor, there's different constructs around there. So maybe if we're thinking about the future of it, I don't know, Calvin, I always think there's going to be advisors, but I do think for mass retail, because they don't get great advice today, I do think there's an opportunity for digital to really give fair, unbiased. I'm not saying it's not unbiased, but you know what I'm trying to say.
What I'm trying to say. Yeah. I mean, that's right in the sense that, you have different segment of clients in this case, right? The ultra high net worth and then masses. I mean, let's just put in two groups just to make it easier. Of course, ultra high net worth, you have the RM clients. RM is basically already, servicing them with tools and whatnot able to tell and even provide advices as to when they need it, right? But you have the masses where they want to get into the overall investment products, but they don't have the luxury of getting an RM to service them by sheer volume. So that could be one. On the other hand, is that, the upcoming, young, also young and wealthy, but they may not need an RM to service them because I know more than you do, right? Internet is my source of information and all that, right? So that could be one thing. And the other thing is, it depends on where they navigate around the internet. We sort of know how we can predict, in a sense, behavior, the interest, propensity, and so on and so forth. There are a lot of models out there that we can actually apply, right? So yeah, I mean, there's no straight answer to your question. It's actually, how do you want to accommodate the solution to the right set of clients?
I mean, I already think so. I started Bamboo 6 years ago, and already we've seen massive changes, in wealth management. Like, I think just, for example, a thing like Stashaway 6 years ago would never have got to $1 billion of AUM. It just wouldn't have. Like, it just wouldn't have happened. Whereas today, I don't know if that 1 or 2 billion it has. But maybe, Calvin, throwing over to you. How's it, if you have your crystal ball and you've thought about it?
I wish I had a crystal ball on that. But, 5 years, to me, 5 years is too long. Yeah, I mean, when I talk to guys, we look at the next 2-3 years because technology changed too fast. You have Stashaway, and then you have some other organization that come in as well. I mean, just an example, right? In the past, when we thought Robinhood, it's like, wow, that's game changer. And it did, right? It's game changer from that perspective. But if you look at it, no one can really tell what's going to happen in the next 5 years. But in terms of hyper-personalization, it's that we're going to look at it from maybe a different angle. Not so much from wealth management. We know wealth management from a product. It remains as it is. It's how we service customer. And from a client as well is what sort of product and advice we are able to make it available, faster, accurate. It may not be 100% accurate, but to some extent that we're able to provide relevant advice that the client needs. I think what would be imperative is actually, moving to a world where cookieless is going to be the challenge for everyone to actually, get to know more about clients, right? Because that's what, like I said earlier in the call, is that there's just so much we know about client, and to the extent the client actually tell you. But if you take away RMs, it's actually, will the client tell us as an organization as a whole? We wouldn't know. So the only way for us to get to know the client essentially is for them to give us consent to say that, look, here's my information. I'm interested in this, through that, right? Take a look at my profile. And then, come back with some advice, personalized advice where you think that it's necessary, suitable for me.